We will help you defeat Zeus. I will show you the way to the Sisters of Fate.
The ghost of Sparta. Theseus. And what they say is true.
You must find a way across to the island of Kratos, for there lies your path to the Sisters of Fate.
You seek the sisters to kill Zeus. You no longer possess the powers of a god, Kratos. I doubt you're capable of killing me. I serve and protect the Sisters of Fate for the glory of Zeus. Why do you aid me, Gaia?
Zeus must be stopped. His story of revenge has been told before. You know of the mighty Titan Kronos.
Zeus has commanded him to wander the desert endlessly, the Temple of Pandora chained to his back.
The steeds of time, a gift from the great Titan Kronos.
Our destiny has brought us together, warrior.
His unsuccessful attempt to gain the favor of the Sisters of Fate.
I hid away the last remnants of my magic.
And change the destiny which the Oracle foretold.
For the good of the Titans, I, Kronos, now bestow what is left upon you.
So fearful was Kronos of the Oracle's prediction that his own children would rise against him, that he decided to imprison them all in his belly. Rhea stood by and watched as her children were devoured one by one. She was unable to bear another such loss, and devised a trick to save the baby Zeus. It was I who cared for him. It was I who kept him safe. I nurtured his desire to free his brothers and sisters from Kronos. But my foolish act of compassion would haunt the Titans forever. For in sparing Zeus, we allowed him to return to us with vengeance in his heart. He betrayed all of the Titans for the sins of just one. The sins of his father, Kronos.
What I do now, I do for the good of all Olympus. You will pay for this, Zeus. Be certain of that. The cycle ends here.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to more Let's Play God of War 2, the 2007 sequel to the original God of War. We're starting off today's episode in the main menu, because this is kind of a short episode. I figured this is a perfect time to, show off the main menu and the stuff it's got going on. There's not much. It's all the regular stuff you expect from all the other God of War games. All the other Greek Saga God of War games anyway, but it's all there. Just wanted to show that. Specifically, I also wanted to show that I'm going to be playing the game on Titan mode, and then I beat the game on all the difficulties before. Actually, I didn't beat the game on all the difficulties. Once you beat the game on one particular difficulty, then you basically unlock bonus play for all the difficulties below that. Bonus play is the New Game Plus, which is explaining that you could, if you wanted to, start the game from the very beginning with all the stuff you got from your previous playthrough. I chose not to because we're doing a fresh, basic playthrough to show you how to do things. If you're playing this for the first time. So that's what we're doing. That's why we didn't pick bonus play. And I picked the highest difficulty because, whatever, I like to challenge myself. It's a good game, good combat. When I mess up, it's usually my fault, so it's nice to challenge myself with higher difficulty in games. I find, anyway. Some people don't like that. That's fine. That's their prerogative. There's nothing wrong with that. Last time, we went ahead and commanded the Steeds of Time to move the big island, the island of creation itself, closer towards the Temple of Lachesis to connect the two. It was kind of funny that they ended up moving the giant island as opposed to moving the small island towards the bigger one, but that's just the way it is. That's just the exaggerated nature of God of War 2. Everything's got to be bigger. Everything's got to do big things. But anyway, now that we've commanded the Steeds of Time, they move the islands close to each other so we can actually get onto the main island of creation itself. It's time to leave the Steeds, which we're going to after this basic fight with some armored enemies and some Minotaurs. The same Minotaurs from the terrible Theseus fight that I went on and on about last time. Thankfully, no Theseus fight this episode, no boss fight this episode. Actually, this is, again, a very low-key episode of God of War 2. Less than half an hour. We're just going to do some basic exploration, some transition from one area to the next. Not much more to say other than that. It's going to be a very low-key good time with God of War 2 today. As Kratos continues to kick some butt there, I'm going to go ahead and just look up the Metacritic score for God of War 2, because I forgot what it was. I know it was high, but I forgot what it was. A 93, of course, with a 9.1 user score. Yes, this game is beloved by basically most everyone. And why shouldn't it be? God of War 2 is a phenomenal game that basically did everything that a sequel should aspire to do. It repeated all the things from the first game that were successful. It removed things that weren't, i.e. the original version of climbing the walls and the ceilings, and added things that people really, really enjoy. There's a much better parry system in this game that carries on into God of War 3. It's the best parry system. Again, it takes way too long to get it in this game, but once you get it, it is the best parry system. The combat feels better than it did in God of War 1. Which is crazy because it's the same combat, but it just feels better and more fluid and more responsive in God of War 2. It's a beauty to look at. I mean, look at this. This is 2007. This still looks not that bad even today. Obviously, things look blocky and the textures are older than what you would want from a modern game, obviously. But it still looks pretty dang good. Now, off in the distance, we can see that a giant tower, a giant spire, just poking out in the distance. That is our ultimate goal. That is where the Sisters of Fate actually are. Physically, that's where they're physically hanging out. That's where we're going to be going towards. That's going to be our ultimate goal. That is going to be the landmark that we're going to be seeing used for the majority of the game from this point onward. It's going to be that spire off in the distance. That is the Temple of the Fates. That is where the Fates themselves reside. If we want to change our fate and change what happened when Zeus betrayed us, we're going to have to make our way all the way to that spire that is way off in the distance. And that is going to take the whole rest of the game to do. We have some new enemies here. These are they're kind of like fireflies, but they're bombed, but they're basically bombs, so there's your God of War exaggerated twist. Basically, if you grab them, you can smack them to the ground. Once you smack them to the ground, you can grab them again. Kratos can hurl them like a bomb. You have some control over the direction he throws it in, so make sure to throw it towards enemies to explode them and do some damage. Yeah. Good stuff. We have a couple of red orb chests here, just out of the way. Not as crazily hidden as they were in God of War 1, but there's some thought. But there is thought in how to find them and where they were placed. It's not just random walls that don't look like they could be broken, but are actually breakable walls. That kind of insanity that you would see in the original God of War title. Again, God of War 2 improves on almost every front, and one of those fronts is the placement of the hidden chests. It's very well done in this game. Like this is a nice example. That's a basic item chest that didn't have any collectible items in it, but there's an item chest just off to the side that if you explore just a little bit more, will reveal to you another Gorgon's Eye. So remember, ABE, always be exploring. Even in basic, quiet areas like this, it never hurts to explore a little bit more because you never know what you're going to find. Like down here. This is not the path to go, but this is where you go if you want to get yourself another collectible item. ABE, always be exploring. I've been saying this since God of War Ascension. but it remains true all the way up until God of War 3. Always be exploring. Actually, I want to talk about the item chests now, because I just remembered something about them that I should probably mention. So, like with all the other previous God of War games, I have a collectibles guide for God of War 2 that's going to be coming out after all the other episodes are out. It's kind of weird how God of War 2 handles its item chests. God of War 2 does this thing. I can't fully prove that it does it, but I'm going to link some videos in the description for the appropriate episodes for you to judge for yourself. I believe that God of War 2 replaces item chests with red orb chests after you collected all the collectibles. Like, instead of just doing the thing the other God of Wars do, where after you collect, all the eyes and all the feathers, any item chests that would have originally had eyes or feathers will now just have a bunch of red orbs. I think that God of War 2 does things a little bit differently, where instead of just keeping the item chests, but, when you open them up, they just have a bunch of red orbs because you already collected all the eyes and all the feathers. I think God of War 2 despawns those item chests and replaces them with regular red orb chests. I can't fully prove it does that, but I think it does. And again, I have some videos, and I'm going to link in descriptions and stuff to kind of compare and contrast for certain parts of the game, because I really believe that's what it's doing. If that's what it's doing, it makes it really difficult to do collectibles guides, because the only kind of collectibles guides I can possibly do for God of War 2 would be just how to collect everything at the earliest point possible. And I can't show you where all the item chests are going to be, because some of the item chests despawn after you collect everything. So it's kind of weird, but that is the situation with God of War 2. Allegedly. I have no, scientific proof to back up what I just said. But it feels like that's what God of War 2 is doing with its item chests. I think. Based on how the collectibles guide is going to look, and those videos that I'm going to link in the future episodes, the episodes that are actually relevant to that, it feels like that's what it's doing. I'm glad this is the only God of War game that does that. If that is what it's doing, I'm glad this is the only God of War game that does that, because 3 doesn't do that, 1 doesn't do that, the spin-off titles don't do that, and Ascension doesn't do that. So if that is what God of War 2 is doing, again, I can't prove that's what it's doing, but if that is what it's doing, I'm glad this is the only game to do that. Now, I've been going on and on about chests and collectibles guides. We haven't talked about what we're actually doing here. We're actually getting ourselves a new power-up here. It's very similar to something that we used in Ascension. You may recall, back when we Let's Played that game. This is going to be the ability to slow time. It's not as overpowered as it was in Ascension, because in Ascension, you can basically use that power anytime you want, once you get it. In God of War 2, you can only use it in certain situations, specifically when you are close, when you are within visual seeing distance of a statue of the Fates. That is the only time when you can actually use the Amulet of Fates. The Amulet of Fates can't be powered up. It's just a regular thing that you collect.
The relic that you hold, an amulet of the Sisters of Fate, will allow you to move swiftly through time while all around you slows.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Kaya. Except that you can only do it while you're within visual distance of a statue of the Fates. You can't just do it anytime you want, as with the Amulet of Ouroboros from Ascension, or whatever it was called then. It was a similar thing in Ascension. You could do it. You can use it anytime you wanted. Technically, it's better than the Amulet of the Fates, but not by much, because it's the same basic principle. On the times that we can use the Amulet of the Fates, though, it's going to come in very, very, very useful. So I really like it as a collectible that we can get. It's niche because it can only be used in certain places, but the places you can use it are places where it is very, very, very helpful to use it, not just for exploration, but for combat as well. We'll get into that in a little bit, because we're actually going to soon have a combat encounter where the Amulet of the Fates can play a role. It's not going to be as useful in this first combat encounter as it will be in future encounters, but it's going to be pretty useful all the same. But first, we have a big cutscene where Kratos talks to a Sister of the Fate. So here we go. See you after.
Hear me, fallen god. None defy what the fates decree. That is how it must be. Only death awaits you at the end of your journey.
My death is what began this journey.
The fates have not deemed victory for you. Your soul will never find peace for what you have become.
I am what the gods have made me.
Okay, and with that, we are on a quest to become masters of our own fate. It's actually the reason why this episode is called Invictus. Invictus is a poem, I believe, about a master of fate. Yeah, I'll link the poem so you can read it if you want. It's very interesting. I read it a while ago. I liked it enough that I named this episode after it. So.
We will never allow you to reach our sacred temple, Kratos.
Showing off the fact that the statue of Lachesis talks to you as you fight, and also that I died a couple of times. These are the wraiths from God of War 1. They're back. They're not that annoying. The reason I died 2 times in this fight is because of the backup enemies that come into a system. They're little flies that can shoot globs of green goo at Kratos, and also webs that can stun Kratos and leave him completely open to the attacks of wraiths. Yeah, those little things are not fun. You can use the Amulet of the Fates if you want it here to slow the enemies down and give yourself more time to do damage to them, but the raids are kind of tricksy. They have lots of frames of invincibility to them that don't really mesh well with the Amulet of the Fates. You can use the slowdown power if you want, but I would recommend waiting until after after the little black fly enemies show up to join the party here. When they show up, then it's okay to slow down time, because they don't have those annoying invincibility frames, and you're going to want to kill and dispose of these annoying little fly enemies as quickly as possible. I believe there's 4 or 5 of them in total, and you absolutely don't want to deal with them in real time, not in conjunction with the raids, because again, even though you can block everything the raids do, you can't block everything the little flies do. You can block their globs of green energy, but if they shoot the web at you and stun you, then you're completely open to the massive damage that the raids can do to you. So I would recommend slowing down time and dealing with those little fly enemies immediately as soon as they show up. And after they're all done, which I think there were only 4 of them, then you can finish dealing with the raids. Yeah. It's not that bad. And once you're dealing with the raids by themselves, you can use the same strategy you did in God of War 1, which is just grabbing them. It launches them up into the sky. At that point, you can jump after them and do some attacks if you're feeling brave enough, or just wait for them to come back down and do it again. Everything they do is blockable, so if you're feeling overwhelmed, or if you have low health and you're kind of freaked out and don't want to die a 3rd time, then you can go ahead and just block. But at this point, there's only 1 left, so now I'm going to go ahead and launch it up and actually start attacking it, as you can, to speed things up. So that's nice. Alright.
You cannot change your destiny, mortal.
With Lachesis' head destroyed, we can now go ahead and go back to this bridge where Gaia told us the baby Zeus backstory, but now that we had the Steeds of Time push the island of Kratos. As I said, now that we had the Steeds of Time push the island of creation towards us, now we can actually step forth onto the proper island of creation itself. So here we go. Welcome to the island of creation properly. Not that we weren't there before, but now we're on the main island. We're really on the path now towards the Sisters of Fate. And again, that big spire in the background, that's our ultimate destination. That's where the Sisters of Fate actually are. So that is going to be the landmark that we're going to be basing our entire journey on, is how far away are we from that giant spire that's off in the distance. Right now we're pretty far away, but we just started, so, you know, we'll get closer. No worries. Now that we've properly stepped foot into Destiny's Atrium, we're introduced to new Cyclope enemies. Yay, Cyclops, hooray. And these boars. The boars are annoying because, you know, like everything in Titan mode, they can do a lot of damage to you. But they die in one grab. You grab them once, and Kratos will automatically just, you know, gut them as he does. Don't let the Cyclops grab the boars, because the boars are here not just to attack Kratos. They're there to give the Cyclops something to grab and throw at Kratos. If the Cyclops is close enough to the boar, he will grab the boar and he will toss it over at Kratos. Don't let that happen. Try to control the arena by running around. That whole aggro thing that I was talking about way back in the Ascension playthrough, where enemies that are off camera don't really attack Kratos. They try to put themselves on screen so they can start doing their animations to attack. Take advantage of that and try to keep the Cyclops off screen. So run around the arena, try to keep the Cyclops off screen so that you can have the distance and time to deal with all the boars. There's a lot of boars, and you want to get rid of them all before you start dealing with the Cyclops, because you don't want to, in God of War 2, and any God of War game really, it's much better to, even if you're dealing with a lot of enemies, it's easier to deal with a lot of enemies that are just one type of enemy, as opposed to dealing with a lot of enemies that are of different types. Because you're dealing with different types of enemies, you're dealing with different attacks, different timings for blockings, and eventually for parryings. It gets complicated. So for any fight in God of War 2 or in any God of War game, really, the priority should always be to limit the amount of the types of enemies that you're dealing with. So in this fight, we're dealing with Cyclopes and boars. Boars are faster to deal with. Get rid of all the boars. That way you can only focus on. That way you can keep your mind focused on just dealing with whatever attacks the Cyclopes can throw at you. And I say Cyclopes even though there's just one. More are going to show up. This Cyclops by itself is just the start of the waves of the two waves of Cyclops that are for this fight. Cyclops itself is not that bad. It can grab you. It can do some decent damage. Obviously, like everything in Titan mode. The weird thing about Cyclops is that they have to be really, really close to Kratos before they do anything. So you can take advantage of that and just run away. If you run away, the Cyclops is just going to be forced to chase you, and you can just take it. And you can just take advantage of that AI, and just force it to chase you most of the time. And it will rarely attack. It'll only attack when you want it to attack, i.e., when you're attacking it. You'll know that you'll give it enough time to get close and attack you. But if you don't want it to do that, then just run away. And 9 times out of 10, the Cyclope is going to think that it's too far away to actually bother trying to attack you. So it's a surprisingly really, really easy variant of Cyclops to deal with, because you can really easily exploit the AI of it just by running away. Again, just by running away, you're going to put it in a position where it's not going to really attack you unless you want it to, and you're going to want it to attack you once you're attacking it. And when it does, you just roll out of the way. Otherwise, just run away to reposition yourself, and it's not going to do anything. It's going to run for a little bit, then eventually it'll stop running, and it'll, do a guttural yell at you. But other than that, it can't really do anything unless it's actually physically close enough, which is pretty crazy. But that is how these Cyclopes work, which makes them far easier than even the God of War 1 Cyclopes, the ones that had those giant maces that they could toss around at you. These ones don't have any such long range attacks. They have to be really close to do anything. So I'm speeding up here because it's a very simple battle. It's very straightforward. but it is time-consuming, as with most things in high-difficulty God of War. Time-consuming, so there's opportunities for mistakes. But it's a very, very straightforward battle. Really not much to it at all. But again, it's a very long battle. I've made mistakes. I let it do its ground slam on me. It does a lot of damage. Don't take these battles lightly. Just because it's easy to exploit Cyclope's attack patterns doesn't mean that you shouldn't, be careful, because, oh boy, they can still kick your butt pretty quickly. But with Cyclope's dead, that is the last battle of this video. There's some more exploration stuff that we're doing, but in terms of fighting, that was it. That's the last battle of this video. So we have this big giant force field we have to get through. Very easy to do so. All we have to do is stop Lachesis' statue from staring hard at that barrier, and once we do that, we will break the barrier and be able to proceed forward towards that spire, which again is our ultimate goal. To stop Lachesis from staring at the barrier, all we have to do is just put shields in front of her eyes to block it. That's one. Hooray for us. We're halfway there, and the other one is just on the other side. It's very simple. There's going to be a more time-consuming version of this puzzle later on, so this is just an introduction to this kind of puzzle for us to get used to right now. We have this statue here, but we can't actually push it. We can't actually push it because there's a little bit of of difference in elevation in where we'll be and where we need to push it. So we have to go ahead and lift it straight up and take advantage of Kratos' kick that he can do when he grabs and pushes things around. There we go. With that, we're going to go ahead and destroy the barrier. So here's a cutscene. All right, that's it. Like I said, this is a very short episode of God of War 2 compared to the first three. Most of the episodes are going to be the length of the first three, 40-something minutes, because God of War 2 is a longer title, but there's going to be a few episodes like this that are going to be pretty short, pretty straightforward, not that much I really need to say. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Let's Play God of War 2. I will see you all next time for yet another change of scenery and the first of two major detours that we're going to be taking. I'll talk more about those detours and how I feel about them next time when we're actually knee-deep in our first detour. So, yeah, I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Hidden deep within the spire lie the sisters. They control the threads of fate. Gain control of your thread, and you will be able to return to the moment when Zeus betrayed you.